Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Love of Creatives with your connections and community guys, Maddox and Dwight. I'm Dwight, and today I'm joined by Maddox. He is taking the spot of the featured guest. So, welcome, Maddox.
Yeah, I get to tell my story today. This is the fun part, to be on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, well, I know that there's a lot of people who might know a little bit about your story, a lot of people who may have just met you, and some people who may not have heard anything about you at all. So, why don't you just give us a little bit of an overview of who Maddox is and what he's about?
Well, um, I would say that I'm a softie. I'm a big old teddy bear and heart. I got a heart, and I identify as an intuitive. I identify as an empath. I feel other people's feelings. I can sense energy in a room. Um, For what I do or what I've done, I am a retired salon press professional. I retired at the end of 2019 after 40 years of beauty service. Um, I retired from the industry. I didn't retire from the workforce or life because here we are. This is a job to me. It's a job I love, but it is work. I would say that I definitely consider myself a creative. And I think that's why I'm just this is such a good fit for me. I've been creative all my life.
Cool. Well, and that's uh, definitely something that I share. I mean, this is something that is a lot of hard work at times, and I'm glad to be in the trenches with you. So, full disclosure, Maddox and I are partners in this work that is for the love of creatives and in life.
Yes, he's
So,
he's my person.
oh, and you're my person. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your earliest memories with creativity?
I've been kind of thinking about this a little bit and continuing to think about it. And there were some things that came up first, and then there were some things that came up second that I wouldn't have considered and didn't think they would come up. I would say my early memories of creativity were a mixed bag. As a small child, it was good memories. Um, I guess maybe the thing that I remember first that had something to do with creativity was watching my father hand make toys for me. At that time in our family, although, um, my dad worked and of course made a living for the family, there was not a lot of excess, and so he had to get creative at times, and he made me toys. He made me um, like, I don't even know what we'd call it. It was kind of a top that flew,
Mm.
and he made it out of like a pencil and some string and a empty spool of thread and a a coffee can lid that he cut and twisted and to make blades out of it. And you'd pull that string and that thing would fly up in the air. And it was just the coolest thing as a kid. He made me, he made me some stilts one time out of wood. And I learned to walk on those stilts, and I would walk all over the neighborhood in those stilts. I was the only kid that had stilts. I look back on all the things that I had and did as a kid, and I kind of feel sorry for children today because they just have screens that they look at all the time. And I don't know. I look back with fond memories on that aspect. He made me a go-kart one time with, made it out of plywood, and he repurposed a skateboard, and he repurposed some wheels off of a lawnmower. And It was just the coolest thing. You'd get at the top of the hill and everybody would push and you'd fly down that hill in that go-kart and all the kids, wanted turns riding on it. It was just very fond memories of creativity before I started being creative myself.
Oh, it sounds magical. As you shared those stories, I'm reminded of what it was like for me being a kid in the 80s and having to come up with adventures with the kids in the neighborhood. And I too can look at how something is lost because kids today are just looking at screens.
I remember making Christmas tree forts after Christmas. I remember getting in an old truck tire and taking turns rolling each other down the hill inside that truck tire. As a kid, I loved Hot Wheel cars, and I would draw entire cities on the driveway so I could drive my Hot Wheels around the city. And then there was the dark side of creativity, and came actually this morning. I was just thinking about my creative experience overall in anticipation of this conversation. And when I became a teenager, I was bullied a lot in school,
Mm.
like a lot. And I can look back and realize that there was creativity in learning how to avoid the bullies. There was creativity in learning how to make myself as invisible as possible so I didn't get the crap beat out of me or just get ridiculed in front of the entire student body. Um, it was, to be honest, a painful time, but it's had some definite, as I've come through adulthood, even though it was a rough time in my life and it lasted for several years, it contributed to me in ways that I wouldn't trade for all of the lotto money in the world.
Yeah.
So,
And I remember listening to how you'd share just little glimpses into what that was like in your prior podcast and the Authentic Gay Man podcast. I remember you would say quite often that as horrible as it was, you wouldn't trade all of that pain because it was so much a part of who you are.
I think I realized that everything that I went through was the equivalent of a blacksmith taking a piece of metal and forging it into something, a tool or a sword or something useful. All of the bullying forged me into the man I am today. And I'm quite fond of the man I am today. I love the man I am today. And I wouldn't be that man if I hadn't gone through all of that. So, where I would never want to relive it, I would never wish it on my worst enemy. I wouldn't, if I could rewrite history, I wouldn't rewrite it.
That's a beautiful sentiment, and I know it took a lot of work to appreciate the bitter with the sweet.
It
Um,
did take a lot of work. Looking back and the brighter side again of creativity, as I'd said earlier, there wasn't a lot of excess finances in my family, and so whatever we didn't get new Christmas decorations every year. It was just whatever we had, and they were there for the duration of my childhood until I grew up and left home. And my mom would marvel every year at Christmas because I was the decorator. I would pull all those Christmas decorations out and she'd say, "Oh my God, you just amaze me how you take the same old tired decorations every year and make it look different every year." And I did, and I thought there was great joy in that at that time in my life. It was a very fun thing to do to figure out how I could make it look better and different than it did last year, even though it was the same decorations.
Yeah. Well, and I see that take shape in things that you do up to this day. A lot of people who might know you casually think that you're really friendly and easygoing, but I know that you are also a perfectionist and you have a strange visual sense that is so keen and so perfect. And I I've noted that whenever you enter a room, if things are placed differently, you have to adjust them to be in exactly the right place.
There's probably a little OCD there, you know. And I will say that I am not even a fraction of the perfectionist that I once was. I refer to myself as a perfectionist in recovery. I've let go of a lot of that. I I still very much believe in excellence, and I want things to be good, and I want things to be great. But I've kind of let go of the perfection thing.
And it's good that you can let go of it because there's a point at which it controls you.
Well, and I don't know, perfection in creativity is can be the death. Perfectionism can be the death of creativity because you never ever get to true perfection. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. And so we're trying to create something that's perfect and it's not going to happen. And as long as that's our goal, we never get it finished and we're never happy with it. And I see that a lot in other creative people.
Mhm.
It is it's a creative killer.
Yeah. And I know that that journey for you speaks a lot to your own personal growth. And I know that you've done a lot of personal growth work. How how has that informed your choices for, well, for how you uh, earned a living, and all of the things that you tried, all the things that you well, all of the other ways that you have tried to engage and build community over the years?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I have an answer for that. I have in my lifetime done a tremendous amount of personal growth work. In fact, sometime this coming year in 2025 makes um, literally 40 years that I have very intentionally and consciously been on a spiritual path. Now, I believe we're all spiritual beings. So we're all on a spiritual path, but there's a lot of people that aren't really conscious of that and it's not intentional. For me, it became intentional in 1985. I remember where I was, what I was doing, and who I was with. It was an experience that changed my life forever. And I have pursued growth and deeper awareness work for, well, since then. Since then. And I wouldn't trade that for anything either. If you could say, okay, we'll give you Elon Musk's money if you give up everything you've learned in all of your personal growth work, I would say, no way, Jose.
I love that.
It's that valuable to me. But I look back and I'm trying to think how that's played a role in my creative life. Um, I think that there is a connection there. I've never really given it a lot of thought, but I do think that when we start to create, it is such a form of our deep self-expression.
Mhm.
Um, when I think about all the heads of hair that I cut and colored and styled
Mhm.
over that 40-year career, um, I put everything I had into that. It wasn't just a job at all. It wasn't just a job. I took it very seriously, and my clients were ultimately important to me, and my creations were about them and for them. It was about supporting them and feeling better about themselves, helping them discover who they were. I always felt like there was something that was different about me, and that I would watch other hair people and they would just, whatever the style of the day was,
Mhm.
when Dorothy Hamill's wedge became popular, every client got a Dorothy Hamill wedge, and likewise with the varying different other styles, the Farrah Fawcett feathers. I always tailored my work to really, really fit the client. And
Mm.
it wasn't just to fit the way they looked, but it was to fit their personality. And so I had to get really, really creative in how to really get clear and determine their personality. Especially when you've got a brand new client, they come in, you have a few minutes of conversation where you question them and you discover what they want, what they think they like. I was less, I mean, I was interested in what they wanted, but I also was more interested in what they needed. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, what people want and what they need are two different things. And so I would listen to what they wanted, and then I would ask them, "Are you open to something different, perhaps?" Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. If they were, I would tell them my vision, but that vision was always about not just what they looked at. It wasn't the texture of their hair, the shape of their face, or the size of their body. That played a role, absolutely. But I got really, really adept at sizing people up really fast.
Mhm.
I could ask key questions in that first few moments of our discussion and our um, uh, my words are eluding me right now, but our consultation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could get enough of a feel of their personality that it was about what they look like, but it was always also about who they were. We've
Mm.
all seen somebody that had a haircut that didn't fit their personality at all.
Yes.
I studied and learned makeup. I could be creative with color. It was a fabulous career, but I would say at the end of the day, as much as I loved doing hair, the highlight was always my clients. It was
Yeah.
always the community. And I say community because it was my community, but it
Hmm.
wasn't really a true community because most of them didn't know each other.
Sure.
I was always the common denominator. Sometimes they knew each other because clients would refer clients to me.
Hmm.
But, by the time I retired, my body was really ready to step away from the chair. I'd been standing on my feet for 40 years, and there was a career before that I'd stood on my feet. I was ready to get off my feet, but I wasn't ready to say goodbye to my clients.
Yeah.
Creativity has always been something that I did with somebody or for somebody. I don't think I ever really, really thought of it in all that time as a collaboration, but I can look back now and see, oh, indeed, it was very much a collaboration,
Hmm.
you know, because I would create what I created, but then the collaboration, I had to have their support or they'd go home and never make it look like I made it again, you know?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I would say yes. Everything that we do, you and I do now, that's creating this business, this podcast, all the artwork that I create for it, everything, creating the events, it's highly creative. It's not art. It's not art. And a lot of it, some of it's visual. You
Hmm.
know, the branding for this, I do that. And I'm not trained at that. I've developed the skill just because I wanted to learn how to do graphic design. I do all of our graphic work and I get a lot of compliments on it. And I have no formal training whatsoever. It was just something that I wanted to learn to do. But yes, creativity has, I mean, everything we're doing right now is creating in support of other creatives, our creative community.
Hmm.
And it wouldn't be to me nearly as fun or as much satisfaction if those people that we do this with in mind and for were not there. It wouldn't be nearly as fulfilling.
Yeah. I have the advantage of knowing some of the stories that you've shared. And so as you're relating this, I can see the thread of that connection that comes from community throughout all the things that you've done, whether it was talking to the old ladies and the family business and your dad telling you, you couldn't spend so much time with them, or whether it was pulling people together in your project that was for men only, where you had built community around people getting together and just having a good time. And it's I get goosebumps because I think about how I upon early in our meeting got that treatment that you talked about with your clients for hair. You did it for my own appearance because I was in a state where I couldn't see myself. And you remember how you phrased it, what you said to me?
I do. We had only been dating for a few weeks. And I mean, a little backstory here, he was very overweight at one point in his past before we met. You know, by the time I met him, he was thin and svelte like he is now. But he was, I mean, the night he showed up for our first date, he had on fat clothes. They were got to be four sizes or more larger than he was. The pants were belted up and the shirt, the little wedge, the little seam of your shirt was just hanging way off of the his shoulders. And um you continued, to kind of show up as we were seeing each other and dating, wearing clothes that were way too big. And at one point, I remember telling you, just asking you, would you let me take you shopping? And you bristled up right away. You were like, kind of like, that doesn't sound like fun. No, I don't want to do that. And I said, you don't have to buy anything. Just, just go out with me and I want you to see you through my eyes. That's what I told you. I
Yeah.
just want you to see you through my eyes. And so we went out. The first store we stopped at, we spent the whole afternoon in. I had him trying on everything in the store. And I can remember, you know, at, uh, at one point I said, try these pants on. He goes, I'm not feeling those pants. And I had told him a little story about a client that I'd worked with many, many years ago. And it was, a chunky little girl that I had told her to put a dress on that had an elastic waistband. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, just go in the dressing room and put it on. And she came out and looked in the mirror and she had a waist for the first time in her life. And it was so overwhelming to her that tears streamed down her face. And so that day when you said, I'm not feeling those pants, I said, neither was that chunky girl that I worked with way back there. Go in the dressing room and put those on. But the funny thing is, he came out of the dressing room and he's walking back up to the store where I was, across the store. One of the sales clerks, female, says to him, wow, those look great on you.
I was sold.
Yes. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, that was fun. Let's go. I was just ready to go. And he scooped up everything that he had tried on, all of it, carried it up to the register and bought everything that he had tried on. And um, in the days and weeks that followed, he would put that clothing on and I would watch him and he would walk differently. It was like he'd put that outfit on and he'd be sashaying around the house, like a little rooster, a bandy little rooster or something. It was cool to see. And that's some form of creation. I saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself, and I wanted you to see it. I took
And
him out and he had some grandpa glasses on. The eyewear was like something you'd see grandpa wear. We went out and got eyewear, and it yeah, it's been fun.
yeah, I never knew. It was the first time that I ever tried on designer frames like that. I didn't know who Philip Blind was, and uh, the frames that I have are distinctive, and all the pairs that you wear are amazing.
Well, and everywhere we go, people will stop us and say, "Oh my God, both of you are wearing such fabulous eyewear." Everywhere we go, and that's not the reason we do it, though. I don't, that's not it.
No, I really feel what it is to have a sense of self-actualization, something that comes from the inside that expresses on the outside. And I I know that that would not have been possible without you.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. It's been fun. We still continue to shop together.
Yeah.
He goes in and pulls an outfit out of the closet and comes over and says, "What do you think of this?" Sometimes he's spot on. Sometimes I go, no, not quite, and we'll work on it a little bit. But um, that's been a big form of creativity for me in my life. My wardrobe has always been a huge point of creativity. And I march to the beat of a different drummer. I don't buy what everybody else is wearing. I don't want to look like a clone or like everybody else. I want to look like me. And I wear bright colors and I like different styles and shapes. And I love shoes and boots. And I have a closet full. And I'm not afraid to express myself, you know, but I do it for me.
Mhm.
I don't do it trying to impress anybody. I don't buy designer labels. I just buy what I like. Yeah, it's for me.
That's really cool.
It's about, when I get it all on and look in the mirror before I walk out the door to go wherever I'm going, it's the way I feel when I look in the mirror and see that I've put on something that really expresses who I am on a deeper level.
It takes a lot of courage to walk against the grain like that. Uh, what what was it that inspired you to figure out who you really were and to wear what really suited you?
I would have to say it goes back to the bullying.
Mm.
When you're bullied, or for me, when I was bullied, I did everything I could to make myself invisible.
Mm.
Well, we as human beings, all of us, every single friggin' one of us, we have an innate need to be seen. But in order to be safe, I couldn't allow myself to be seen. So I went through all of my years of school, the whole enchilada, hiding, not allowing myself to be seen. I had few friends. I was very quiet and shy, and I stuck to myself. I had a couple of friends. Wasn't engaged in hardly any extracurricular activity in school. What just did as little as I could do to get away from that place because it was it it was painful.
Yeah.
But when I finally got away from all that and started to find out who I was,
Mhm.
to get in touch with me, and there wasn't, there's a point where the kids kind of stop bullying you. By the time there was a little bit of bullying in college, but there was a point where that kind of went away, and bullying didn't happen so much anymore. Maybe a little verbal bullying, but not the part that made me feel physically unsafe. I stopped getting beat on, and it began to be a little bit safer to be seen. And so at that point, the combination of really wanting to be seen and then also at age 24 coming out as a gay man, I I I I burst out of that closet. It wasn't a subtle thing. I came out like a fireworks. And I just wanted to express myself in whatever way that looked like. And it mostly showed up in the different hairstyles that I wore and the jewelry and the clothing and the shoes. I love it all. I love it all. But it was definitely a emergence from the darkness of having to hide. And it's
Yeah.
been a journey. It's been a journey because I think that maybe for many years I did things that got me attention,
Mhm.
because I thought that would make me feel seen. I didn't realize that there was a very distinct, it was only been in the last few years that I have realized that getting attention and being seen are two completely different things.
Right.
That getting attention is something that's very fleeting. It lasts for a few moments, it's gone, and then you need more. It's like a drug that you need more, you know, hence why we need likes on our posts, on social media and and it's something that can never be satiated. I've definitely discovered that a for attention can never be satiated. Yet
Right.
the need to be seen, when somebody actually sees you, it has a longer effect. It lasts, it hangs with you. And it is something that can be satiated. You can be made whole by being seen. But I'm going to slide in there that, through all my personal work, what I've learned is it is, once again, it's about me. You know, I had to be willing to see myself before others could truly see me.
Yeah. It was an inside
I
job.
had to be able to validate myself. You know, getting attention is constantly needing somebody to tell you that you're okay, or that you're enough, or that you're this, you're pretty enough, or you're smart enough, or this or that. Whereas, and once again, don't take my word for this. This is my experience. I'll own this, but I encourage you to check it out. Being seen is when we learn how to validate ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we learn how to truly validate ourselves, we don't give a shit whether anybody else validates us. But oddly, because we validated ourselves, now the whole world shows up wanting to validate us. I
Hmm.
get way more validation now from others than I did before I could validate myself. It's very ironic how that works.
Yeah.
But I have less need for it now. When I really needed it, I couldn't find it. And when I didn't need it any longer, it started to flow. I get validated all the time, yet I don't really feel like I need it.
I'm reminded as you're sharing that of the way that RuPaul used to close uh, his show. He would always say, "If you can't love yourself, how in the hell can you um, love anybody else or expect anyone else to love you?"
Both work
Yeah.
very completely. I know for me, and this ties into creativity. I just want to say this. It sounds like we're on some personal growth journey, but creativity is personal growth. The more I found me, the more aware I became of me, the more I love me, the more creativity I have access to.
Mhm.
The more ideas, the more creativity that comes to me and through me because I have done the work.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the bullying presented you with such great challenges, and it's been such a part of who it is that you were, the man that you've become. What other challenges have you had to overcome?
Hmm, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot, but I'm trying to think if there's something, significant. I mean, I think there was a certain level of challenge in coming out as a gay man.
Mhm.
Not so much now in 20, soon to be 25, but I came out in 1981 in a small town in Central Texas where it was not okay, you know? Um, it was it was probably one of the biggest decisions and biggest challenges of my life. And we think, oftentimes I think people who haven't experienced coming out as gay, they think once you do it, it's just done. But it's not, you know? It's not, because we live in a world that it was just a continual coming out. Every new person I met, every new relationship, every new friendship, it and then there was this point where I realized that yes, I'd come out to my family and I'd come out to my clients and I had come out to my friends, and there wasn't anybody that didn't know, I'd come out.
Mhm.
And yet there was still struggle. And I can look back now and realize the struggle was because somehow I wasn't at peace with it.
Yeah.
I could say the words I'm gay. I was living a existence as a gay man, and yet I wasn't at peace with it. This is a real thing and it's rampant in the LGBTQ community, and that is internalized homophobia.
Yes.
There was a point when I realized that I had gotten an acceptance from everybody around me, but I hadn't fully accepted myself. I was still not fully comfortable with who I was. And when I got clear on that, then I began to do what I needed to do to come to that place of full acceptance. And when I did that, coming out ended. Like I don't come out anymore.
Yeah. Oh,
I
so,
mean, there was a time when I just got to where I don't have to tell anybody I'm gay anymore. I can remember the day that I was with a client. She was a brand new client. We didn't know each other, and we're getting acquainted while I'm cutting her hair. And she made some comment about, well, my husband, this, that. And I said, oh, girl, my boyfriend does the same thing. And it was this day where I realized I didn't have to tell anybody that I was gay.
mhm.
I could just talk about my life openly and honestly, just the way anybody else would, refer to my mate, have no problem saying, oh, he,
Mhm.
and it was a game changer,
Yeah.
huge game changer.
Uh, I'm reminded again of the way RuPaul closed out the show each week. And, as you're relating that story, I've shared with you uh, that what you're describing is the nicer world that they created in Schitt's Creek, where sexual orientation just didn't matter.
Well, it doesn't have to, and it shouldn't. Um, I think once again, bringing this back to creativity, how can we fully embrace our creativity
Mhm.
if we haven't fully embraced ourselves?
Yes.
I don't think it's really possible. I think that our access to creative energy, creative ideas, all of that comes from our ability to fully embrace ourselves as a whole human being. I don't
Mhm.
think I would be nearly as creative if I hadn't done the work that I do. I don't I don't have creative block. Like, you know, there may be an idea that I have to trickle on for a day or two sometimes, but I've learned how to just get access to that creative energy like on command,
Mhm.
just on command. And the creativity that flows to me is more than I can manage. I discard a lot of it because there's not enough bandwidth to act on all of the creation that comes to me and through me.
Mhm. And I'm looking at examples of it now on screen. I mean, aside from the set that you've created for yourself, the background with authentic above the cabinet above you, and the painting that's just over your shoulder on the wall, and the one that's behind me, those are Maddox originals.
I did paint for a period. He's not talking about the blue-green one back there. He's talking about the colorful one back over here. That's my painting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, creativity has run through my veins all of my life. I've always danced, not professionally, but I've always danced. And I have played the piano at one point in my life. I sang in choirs. I've done a lot of stuff that was creative, and very little of it, well, there was a lot of it that had nothing to do with a job or making
Mhm.
money. Um, I, I creativity, I don't know where I'd be without it.
Mhm.
It's such a big part of my life.
Well, I feel like we've covered quite a bit in this session. Is there anything else that you think that our listeners should know about Maddox as they continue to listen? Anything that would be foundational for them to kind of know who you are and what you're about?
I'm a lover of people.
Hmm.
I think that the thing that has put fire in my soul for so much of my life has been bringing people together. And that was a form of creativity as well, because we all know people that bring people together and fail horribly at it.
Hmm.
I was always looking for innovative and creative ways to bring people together and for a variety of different reasons. It doesn't matter where I am. If I hear somebody say, "Oh, I need," if I've got somebody in my circle of influence that can supply whatever that need is, I am doing whatever I can to connect them
That's beautiful.
because I think we're better together. In every
Yeah.
regard, we're better together. I'm an advocate of um, resource sharing. I'm an advocate of collaborations. An advocate of community all the way. I have some very specific thoughts about, what community is and what it isn't.
Hmm.
And we will certainly address that in a different episode on a different day.
Yeah.
But yes, we live in a world where loneliness has become an epidemic. And there is a high percentage of our creative community that create in solitude.
Hmm.
And I don't personally believe that is the most effective way to mine your creativity or to manage your creativity or to take advantage of your creativity. I think there are some things that must be done in solitude. If you're writing a book, you probably can't do that in a room full of people talking. There are some things that require solitude, but I think it is a part of your process. It's not all of it. You know,
Hmm.
I think that even if you have something that requires this quiet concentration to create, there are other aspects that go around that, the way you promote it, the way you sell it, the way you show it, whatever it is, that's where you bring the community, the collaboration, the co-elevation in. Because if we don't have that, we are not meeting our potential most likely.
Right.
Nothing's absolute. But I firmly believe that if you really want to reach your potential as a creative, whatever that looks like, the likelihood of you getting there is going to be far stronger if you surround yourself with a community of people who love you, support you, believe in you, and have your frickin' back. We
I,
all need that and we all benefit from that. And if there's people out there listening going, "Oh, but no, I'm an introvert." I'm an introvert. So you don't need to play that card with me. we as introverts, we need quiet time to recharge our batteries. We need quiet time to reflect and to go in. It's very, very important. But even sunshine burns if you get too much.
Amen.
You know, you can take the time that you need and balance it with time in community
Hmm.
because too much solitude can be as it can be worse than not enough,
Hmm.
in my humble opinion.
Well, those are some incredible thoughts, some deep knowledge, and I'm sure that it's going to give people a lot of food for thought.
Thank you. I hope so. You know, I will say this is where my heart is. I don't say this shit to just hear myself talk. I hope somebody out there is listening and gets something valuable out of my story and what I share. My whole existence has been in service to others.
Well, it's beautiful. Uh, I'd like to move us on to the portion where we engage in some rapid fire questions. Are you ready to give some rapid fire answers?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be. I've not been on the other side of this. I ask lots of rapid fire questions, but this is my first time to have to answer them. So we'll see how I do.
All right. Well, uh, if you could go back and talk to that little boy who was bullied so horribly, what encouragement would you give him? What advice would you impart, given your life's knowledge?
You know, I don't know that it would have been advice, but if I
Mm,
could go back and speak to that little boy during those toughest times when he was being bullied so horribly, I would just let him know that I was there and that I had his back, that I would do everything I could to take care of him and protect him, that I didn't have any quick fix or any simple answer, but that I was there, that I loved him, and that I would do what I could to protect him and take care of him. It would be a, I gotcha.
I love that. You've mentioned that you've tried your hand at a lot of creative pursuits. Are there any creative pursuits that you have tried and run away from because they were not your cup of tea?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are. Um, you know, as that 40-year career salon professional, for many of those years, I had a side hustle.
Mhm.
You know, I was always doing things on the side, and I struck out in a lot of different directions, and certainly bombed out many times. You know, had these lofty plans and then just bombed out, and I used to feel bad about that, and used to feel like, oh my gosh, all the time and money that you wasted on those side hustles. And then there was a day when it all came into focus when I realized that I had learned incredibly valuable stuff from every side hustle. I had learned incredibly valuable stuff from every mistake and every failure. And none of the time or the money was wasted because I had learned so much. And I realized that I had done all these wackadoodle things and I was training for something bigger. And I'm still training for something bigger. And who knows whether I will ever get to, realize what that is. I don't know. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is to focus on the journey and enjoy everything you're doing as you're learning all the stuff for, you know, Um,
Oh, you know what you just said, it's a hard lesson that some people never get to learn. And I think that's really valuable and important. It's a real step up in your own journey toward your maturation.
I think it's a lot on how we choose to look at things. If I looked from a financial standpoint with each of those side hustles, I would have to call them a failure.
Hmm.
But if I look around from a different vantage point and look at all the people that I met and connected with, all of the impact that I had on others, um, the things that I learned and the growth and the emotional maturity that I acquired through all that, we often stick our label of success based on one thing, and that is, did it make money?
Hmm.
You know? And that's, in my opinion, a big mistake because that's only that's not even the biggest part. There's so much to our experiences. Would it have been great if some of those side hustles had made money? Yeah, sure, it would have. But once again, if I could rewrite history, I got some cool shit out of everything I did. I don't know. I think that um, the universe has been in my corner my whole life. Yes, I've been thrown some tough stuff. We all have.
Hmm.
And I'm still standing. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm loving life. What else is there? You know, at the age I am now, I'm realizing it's less about the destination. It's more about the journey. I don't know whether I'm going to reach the place that I'm going to right now. May not, you know, may not. And that's okay because every day I get up and I get to do what I want to do. I get to bring people together. I get to be creative. I get to spend time working on this with you. Does it get any better? I don't know. I don't think so. If it does, oh my God. But, you know,
One last question. I know that you prefer the Atlantic over the Pacific, and I know that everything is that much better when it's shared. How would you describe your ideal beach getaway, and who are the people that would be there with you?
oh my goodness. I mean, the beach is my favorite place in the whole world. Sand and sun and ocean, mountains in the background and palm trees. Tropical is the way to go. And you know that about me. And of course, it would be with you.
Well,
It
who
would be
else?
with you. It would be with you. And some exotic place that I haven't been to that has just pristine beaches. I either want to, I love that really fine white sand, or I would love to see a black sand beach. I've never seen that. I've seen photos. I would love to see a black sand beach. Warm water, good seafood, and wonderful sights to see,
Hmm.
and friendly indigenous people of that part of the world. I love being around people that are different than me. I have always, all my life, loved that. Um, and that's one of the reasons that we build so much diversity intentionally into our events and into everything we do. Because there's this magic that happens in the room when you put people together that on the surface look completely different. But if they spend a little bit of time with each other, they find that they are more alike on a deeper level than they would have ever dreamed. And that's the way I believe we're going to heal this planet.
Oh,
That's the way I believe we're going to heal humanity. is by recognizing and noticing the differences at a distance, but really being willing to come in close enough to discover the similarities
Yes.
when you get in closer, the things that really matter. I believe that's how we will heal humanity. And I want to be on the first wave of that.